What do you get when you have a Broadway professional and a camera crew? Long story short, you get a lot of cool info when you get ShowBizU luminaries.
My name is Lily Dwoskin.
And I'm Austin Nuckols. So the two of us together, we wrote Hyena and Petticoats. I wrote the music.
I wrote the lyrics, and we co-wrote the book.
Co-wrote the book, yeah. So basically, Hyena and Petticoats was about the life and work of Mary Wollstonecraft, who was the mother of Mary Shelley, and also, in a way, like the mother of academic feminism. She published a really important work in 1792 called Vindication of the Rights of Women, which was basically the very first widely published book about women's rights, basically over an entire century before women had the right to vote. And so she was just a very controversial figure in her time, hence the name Hyena and Petticoats, which one of her critics called her.
I think that Mary would be thrilled by all the progress that women have made, but also deeply disturbed about the amount of things she argued for and spoke about 200 years ago, which we're still fighting for.
One of her most famous quotes from Vindication of the Rights of Women, which written in 1792, she wrote, "I do not ask for women to have power over men, for only them to have power over themselves." And just the fact that that is a quote that is still relevant and literally over, 230 years later is just kind of absurd.
She argued for equality between women and men. We're still talking about a wage gap today, and we're still fighting. Her
works were just about women just living their lives. She wrote fiction as well as the nonfiction kind of work that she wrote. But all of her, she was kind of a troll in a way, in which that one of her first published books was called Mary: a fiction, which her name was Mary, and she basically just wrote the autobiography of herself as a child, but knew that more people would read it if she just called it a fiction. So she's like, here's my autobiography, and I'm just going to call it a fiction. So she was a very interesting figure to work with, but it's weird, just even those small things of women having control over their own narratives is still a pertinent topic in Hollywood and in theater today.
Our mission, I guess you could say, as collaborators, is to write shows that are both entertaining and educational, that are message or theme forward, but that people come out singing the songs. Because we believe that that's the way to get through to people, is entertain them, make them hum the tunes, because then they'll be humming your message on the way out.
One thing is that we've historically been really bad at explaining what we're trying to do with a certain show, or even what it's about. I think for me, one of the most important lessons that we took out of the Theatre Accelerator experience was what is the question of your show, in a way? What questions does your show ask at the top, and then how do you answer it at the end? And that was something that prior to doing the program, we hadn't thought about. And by the time we were in the program, we were 75% of the way through a major rewrite. So we didn't quite make it into our next version, but we've just started coming back around to the show again 2 years later, and that's a central part of what the show is, and it's hugely shaped our vision for what the next draft is. It's what is the central question of the show, because especially when you're writing a show about one person's life, so much happens in a person's life, people's lives.
What's relevant, what's not relevant, what feels like cheating the person out of their own experiences in the past, as we're now in charge of their story, but what will actually tell their story to today's audience. And also, nobody else is teaching you how to market yourself.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are teaching you incredible, valuable lessons about craft, how to write the show, and then you're out there in the world with your show, and there's no one else teaching you, well, what next? How do I drive the show forward into the world today?
How would you describe Theatre Accelerator experience to someone who is applying and wants to be a part of it?
Oh gosh, how do you explain it? We a lot of times now start with the central question. We've written a few shows since being part of Theatre Accelerator, and we often will stop and be like, well, how does this song relate to the theme that we originally said we were writing this show about? And keep going back to that. And we continue to talk about our pitch for each show, like, and those were, you know, crucial things we talked about at Theatre Accelerator.